What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Mr. Plays, and today I'm going to be doing a Marvel Contest of Champions champion tier list, in which I take every champion from the game and sort them into tiers based on how good they are. So this tier list is just a rough guide of who I believe in most scenarios is better than other champions. But, of course, there are some scenarios where other champions who are lower on this list are better than champions who are higher on this list. For example, there's that no true focus, which means they can't miss or evade. So in that case, the cheat codes probably would be in the bad category, and the average champions, like Green Goblin, would be better than some of these champions. Of course, Ghost, you can still parry and stuff like that and get some nice damage, but again, it's that same sort of thing where this is not for every single scenario. This is just a basic guide on who I personally believe is better than someone else in most situations. So first off, let's start with Purgatory. So I'm going to put Purgatory in the average category. So Purgatory, I like her animation. She's a nice new champion. She got a cool backstory that involves the game, but she's just an average champion. So she's got that cool, nice little damage ramp up where you get into you use her Bloodthirst, so you get up to 100 stacks of Bloodthirst by attacking into the opponent, and then once you get 100 of those stacks, you'll enter Demonic Rampage, which gives you a bunch more attack. What this means is you can sometimes you get that extra attack, and you can also dump some power just by ending with a medium attack. And also, her specials can do some nice damage, like the special 2 inflicts a degen, which can do a lot of damage, and it can also be passively unblockable if you activate it during Demonic Rampage. But her main thing where her utility comes from is the soul capture. So pretty much whenever you gain a bar of power, you gain 1 soul shard, and at 9 shards, you capture the opponent's soul. So pretty much you need to fill 9 bars of power. You'll capture the opponent's soul, and then that inflicts an indefinite neutralize, which makes them 65% less likely to gain buffs. And then winning that fight after you capture their soul also will permanently activate that class soul for the next 2 fights against all classes. So pretty much if you beat a champion, say you beat a Mystic, you have that Mystic soul for the next 2 fights. So she's good in some scenarios where like the different classes line up, but it's only for 2 fights. So if you capture a Mystic soul, whenever the opponent activates a special, you'll regenerate 60% of damage taken from blocked hits for 6 seconds. So this is good against Mystics who have like specials who are hard to dex. For example, maybe long shot special 2, if you're not feeling good about dexing that, you can just block it and you'll regen 60% of that damage back. Again, same thing with Doom specials, as long as they're not unblockable. You can just block it and you can regen some of that damage back. So she's got a nice bit of damage back, but it's not full back. So if it was 100% regen, that would be a lot better, but still it's a nice little bit. Then if you capture the Cosmic Soul, whenever you fill a bar of power, you nullify one of the opponent's buffs. And if you do nullify a buff, you gain an unblockable buff for 2 seconds. So this is good against a lot of Cosmics and also other champions who gain a bunch of buffs. You can nullify those buffs, and then also you can just attack right into them because you'll be unblockable. And then also next you've got the Tech Soul, where whenever you fill a bar of power, you inflict an armor break, which has pretty decent potency, but it's not the biggest armor break we've seen. And it's only for 6 seconds, so it's really only until you get up to that next bar of power, so you can't really stack and they're not even able to be stacked, so it's not like you can stack up 5 of these armor breaks and do crazy damage. So that's the only downside to the Tech Soul. And the Mutant Soul, when the opponent activates a special, you steal 66% of their remaining power, and you gain 100% of that power stolen. So this is sort of interesting because you can steal some of their power, but it's the amount of power they have remaining after they throw their special. So it's not going to be too much power that you'll be stealing from them. And then finally on Skill Soul, whenever a damage over time debuff on the opponent expires, is purified, or it fails to apply due to them being immune to it, you'll inflict a slow for 9 seconds. And then this, of course, will reduce unstoppable and evadability accuracy by 100% and prevent unstoppable. And so but it won't trigger against natural class advantage. So if you're fighting a Science, you can't slow Science champions. And then finally, Science, you cannot capture Science souls because of how chemically tainted they are. So Purgatory, She's got some nice quirky utility where in some scenarios, if you've got the right order of classes you're fighting, she can be good for some specific stuff. But most scenarios, she's just an average champion who can put some okay damage numbers, but other than that, nothing too flashy. Okay, next up, let's talk about the Overseer. Overseer, I will also be putting in the average category. So again, he's pretty much a playable version of the Maestro, but he's sort of newly made and he's a younger version. And so he's got some nice damage where if you can get up to 3 stacks of gamma power by every time the opponent gains a bar of power, you'll get gamma power, which gives you some more attack, and also your debuffs from specials will be more potent. And once you get 3 or more stacks of gamma power, you launch a special, you consume all those stacks, and you'll activate this thing called Cosmic Mode, lasting 3 1/3 seconds per every gamma power you used. And then it's paused during specials, but also you'll gain a non-stacking Fury buff, so you'll get a bunch more damage once you enter Cosmic Mode, and also light attacks will deal a burst of almost 2,000 physical damage, which is some nice damage. So he can get some nice damage, but he doesn't have a ton of utility. He's got this nice thing where after the opponent launches a special, you will inflict a special concussion debuff, which reduces their ability accuracy by 10% during specials, but it's only a max of 7. So the main thing here is it's like, if you have Despair, you can heal block them, but 70% reduction after just a ton of ramp up within a fight is not a ton. You can only stack up 70%. So that's a thing about the Overseer, where it's like some nice bit of utility, but it's not too much. Also, heavies can inflict taunt, which makes them have 20% lower attack, and also a lot higher percent chance to activate specials. But this has a 20-second cooldown, so that's the only thing, is you can't just constantly taunt the opponent like you can with She-Hulk or whatever. And then after you throw a special, you gain auto block passive, which means you will auto block basic attacks when struck twice, so it'll last for 7 seconds or until it's triggered. And also you're stun immune while auto block is active, which is pretty good in case maybe there's encroaching stun or something like that. And then the special 1 will inflict a stun, but if you're in Cosmic Mode, you'll get some regen, which is nice. And then also on a special 2, it'll inflict a disorient. And then also, if you're in Cosmic Mode, you'll gain an energized buff, which gets you some more power, which is good. Finally, the special 3 inflicts a physical vulnerability debuff, so they have some less physical resistance, but it's nothing too crazy. Then finally, for his signature ability, pretty much if an opponent ability fails due to their personal immunity or reduced ability accuracy, they take some physical damage, and you'll gain gamma power. So that's nice, so you can do some extra damage, and then also striking the opponent while they're recovering from heavier specials will deal a burst of from 300 to 3,000 physical damage. So that's nice if you can bait out a lot of heavies or specials, and then you can just counter them, and then you can do a bunch of extra damage. So Overseer, again, I feel like he's got some nice damage potential in some scenarios where you can get into that Cosmic Mode, but most of his stuff isn't at that level of most other champions above. So I think he's just another average champion. Not a bad addition to the game, just an average champion where if you get him as maybe your first 5-star, you can do some damage with him, but nothing too crazy. Okay, so next up, let's talk about the new Scarlet Witch. So this Scarlet Witch, I'm going to be putting in the God tier category. She's a very stressful champion to play, honestly, but she's got some really cool mechanics. So pretty much, all attacks will be energy damage, which is nice, and she's got this instability mechanic where whenever you activate a special, you'll gain an instability, and it's removed when knocked down by a special, so just don't get hit by specials. And if 6 plus instability are active for 10 seconds, you'll inflict the opponent with degeneration, doing a lot of damage, and then when that expires, you'll remove all your instability. And pretty much every 4 seconds, you activate this thing called Chaos Surge, which gives both champions a 20% chance per instability to gain one randomly selected buff. This has a small chance to grant all buffs, so pretty much if you get 5 of the instability, you will have a 100% chance to give either yourself or the opponent a buff, which can either be Armor Up, Fury, Cruelty, Prowess, or Unblockable. And then, so if you nullify any of these buffs, then you'll gain a matching buff for yourself. So if you put one on the opponent and then you nullify it, you'll be able to get it back for yourself. And then before the opponent lands an attack, while blocking, you have a 15% chance to nullify a buff, but that's increased to a 100% chance during the well-timed block window. So pretty much if you parry, you'll be able to nullify a buff. But this is really cool because if the opponent has an unstoppable buff, first by either you gave it to them through your Chaos Surge, or they just get it from somewhere, you can just parry, and then they're not unblockable anymore, as long as it's a buff, which is a really cool mechanic to have. And you can also just nullify a bunch of other buffs that are annoying, like you can nullify power gain from Hyperion. So I feel like she's got, but also the thing is, if Chaos Surge happens and then they're like right, maybe at Winter Soldier Special 2, and then you instantly gave him unblockable buff, and then he throws the Special 2, that's not too fun. But heavy attacks, also they'll consume 1 instability to create a non-stacking power gain buff, which will give you a bar of power over 10 seconds. So that's some nice power gain right there. Special 1 will give you an instability, and then the Special 2 is where more of the damage comes from. So each hit will inflict a random debuff. The duration of that debuff is increased by 20% for each buff on either champion, and then so it will either be a poison, a cold snap, or an incinerate. So all these do a good amount of damage, and you can also double this duration based on how many buffs either champion has. So I feel like I'm putting her in the God tier category because she's got some nice utility and also some really good damage. And then also with her Awakened ability, whenever you activate Chaos Surge against Cosmic Mystic or Tex, you have a 20% chance per instability to inflict a Petrify or Armor Break. So that's good because the Petrify can be up to 100%, so you can get them to have no regen, which is really nice at max sig. And then also the Armor Break can go up to 1433, which is a pretty decent Armor Break. And then also against Cosmic Mutant and skill opponents, you'll have a 20% chance per instability to inflict a Power Sting or Heal Block for 3 seconds. And that Power Sting can do some nice damage, and then of course the Heal Block will stop heals. So she also against Cosmics, she'll be able to apply both. So that's really good. So if you have 5 instabilities and then Chaos Surge happens, which happens once every single 4 seconds, which is pretty often. So you can be inflicting a ton of debuffs on the opponents, inflicting a good amount of armor breaks. All these suffer for 3 seconds, but since Chaos Surge is every 4 seconds, you'll be able to reapply 1 second after it ends. So that's really nice, especially if you can get up to 5 instability. If you get 5 instability, and then whenever you get an extra one to go up to 6, you can just do a heavy and get some power gain, and then you can teeter on that have right at 5, especially for longer fights. So Scarlet Witch, of course, the only way to get her right now is through the sigil. I feel like she's a really cool champion, a really different champion with all that randomness, and I really like what they did. Okay, so next up, I'm going to be going over the champions that got buffed this month. So the first champion I want to talk about is going to be Ronin. So Ronin, everyone knows this buff wasn't much, but I'm going to move him up 1 slot, from God to Beyond God. So I have this guy as a 6-star. I love him so much. What they did is pretty much they changed his Awakened ability, where if you pretty much instead of using all your cruelties, it will only use like 3 cruelties to evade, and then you'll also get Furies, which are a bit more potent. So that's really nice. That can give him some more damage, and they also made the bleeds a bit less time, but a bit more damage, so it's a lot better with deep wounds. And also, even without this buff, there's a good chance I would have added him to the Beyond God tier category this month anyway, just because of how good it is, just because of how good of a champion he is. Like, he doesn't have the most flashy damage, but he got some really nice damage there. And then he's also got a ton of utility. So pretty much his main thing is he gets cruelties, but every time you enter a stance. And so pretty much he's got 3 stances: Guard, Wraith, and Demon. And these are all really cool because they've got some great utility in them. So the Guard stance, well-timed blocks will stun opponents even if it's a non-contact attack, and you also have 35% chance more to have a perfect block. So that's really good. So you can parry Iron Man Infinity War's first medium, and just all stuff like that. That's annoying because it's non-contact, but you can parry all these if you're in the Guard stance. And also, whenever you enter this stance, you have a 100% chance to Purify debuff, which is amazing, making him great for suicides, because you can just get rid of those 2 debuffs right off the bat, just by entering Guard stance twice. And then also, especially against like Void. And also the great thing is, how you prepare a stance is by throwing light attacks. So pretty much your first light will prepare guard, second will prepare the wraith, and then the third light will prepare the demon stance. So that, and also this happens into a block. So say you're fighting Void and you didn't get the combo correct, you can just dash at him, and if you hit him or not, even if you're just hitting his blocking, you can do a medium and then a light and then dash back, and you just got rid of that debuff. And it's amazing. Then Wraith stance, pretty much all attacks reduce defensive ability accuracy by 40%, but your special 1 will disorient the opponent, and which will make their ability accuracy 60% chance less, say like 60% less. So that means it's 100% defensive ability accuracy reduction, which is so good for so many different things. And finally, Demon Stance, which is if you don't really need any utility, you bleeds gain plus 75% chance ability accuracy and can be inflicted on blocked hits. And so Ronin, he's a really hard champion to play because pretty much he's all about getting intercepts and stuff like that, because he's got some more crit rating whenever you do an intercept. And then also his first medium and first 3 lights are sword attacks, which can bleed the opponent. So you never want to finish a combo. You always want to be backdraft intercepting and stuff like that. And then in special 2 is where the big damage comes, which will inflict a bleed and also has a bunch of crit damage. And then special 3, you can remove all your cruelties to get a pretty chunky fury, which is nice. But Ronin, so he's a hard champion to play, but I feel like he just, if you're good at playing this guy, he's just so insane. He's got a lot of damage, ton of utility, and I feel like he's just a really good overall champion. So next up, the next buff we had this month was of Bishop. So Bishop, I'm going to be taking him. So right now he is in the average category, and I'm going to be taking it up to God, right, with Scarlet Witch Sigil. So this was a great buff, because he had some nice stuff with that prowess before, but it wasn't very practical to use in many fights in a row. But what they did is they took him and they just made everything a bit better. So I love what they did, where he's always had this mechanic where you can start the next fight with the amount of power you ended the last fight with. But that wasn't really practical, because most fights you're ending with a special 2 maybe. And if you use your special 2, then you're starting with like half a bar of power, which isn't that much. But now what they did is they made that so you throw your special, and then once the special's over, you lose that power. But if you finish the fight with the special, then you'll keep all that power. So if you kill him off with the special 2, you'll start the next fight with the special 2, which is amazing. And so he's got that, his main thing is he gets personal prowess. So pretty much each prowess he has increases special attack damage by 10%. But every second, if you receive energy damage, you'll gain 3 prowess. And then pretty much whenever you block or get struck, you get 1 stack of prowess. But well-timed blocks get an additional 6 prowess. So every parry is 7 prowess. And these will also get an extra prowess against skill and 1 less against tech. And that's just really amazing, because against all opponents that aren't skill or tech, that's 7 prowess, so 70% more special damage every single parry. And then against skill, that's even more, and tech just a bit less. But that's still amazing. And then pretty much before, they had this thing where when you got over 30 prowess, you would start degenerating your own health. But now they took that away, because that didn't really make much sense. But now it's just he's got that really good prowess, which is amazing, because you can build up a bunch of prowess, and then you can maybe throw off a special 2, and then that special 2 will inflict an incinerate, which does 7% of the total damage dealt by the special. And pretty much you're getting almost double damage off that special with the incinerate also. So they just did a great job with this buff. He's got a bunch more damage. He's just so much more practical to play. And he's also got this cool thing where every time the opponent purifies a debuff, they instantly get a ton of energy damage. And also skill champions will receive a passive stun if they purified a stun. So this is such a great counter for so many annoying fights like Kingpin if you purify stuff, and also maybe the Daredevil where he'll purify your debuffs. And just other encounters where any champion will purify your debuff. And then skills, if they purify your stun, then you do the damage, and then there'll also be a passive stun, so you can just go in right away after. So he's also got a lot of utility right there with that. So Bishop, he's a great buff. They did a great job with his buffs, which puts him in the God category. So next up, we have Diablo. So this Diablo buff was a great buff. So if I can just find Diablo on this list, he wasn't too good before this buff, but because of this buff, it made him a really good champion. So Diablo, I'm going to be taking him from average straight up to beyond God category. So Diablo, he's a great champ. They did a great job with this buff. This was the biggest buff where it just did the most stuff with it, and it was really good. So before, he didn't have much utility, didn't have much damage, but now pretty much he's got this cool thing where whenever you have 100% incoming poisons have 100% less potency. So that means if you're running the suicide masteries, that's just free willpower healing right there. And anytime you get a poison, again, just free healing. And this guy's a healing machine. Because also off his special 1, you'll be able to get some regen. And then if you do it for the full time, then you can get a ton more regeneration. And he's also got that whole thing where you can do ingredients before a fight. And they made him give him a strong nullify ability, where if you do the Essence of Null, every 2 seconds you'll nullify a buff off on the opponent. So pretty much this is active when the Philosophers mix. So pretty much every time you launch a special, it will last 8 seconds per level of special attack used, and also heal Diablo every second. And so pretty much what this does is, if you throw maybe a special 1, then that means you'll be able to nullify 4 buffs on the opponent. And you can also have Distilled Will, which incoming energy damage causes you to heal 70% of the damage taken. And the last one, Grain of Uru, you gain stun immune, you become stun immune and armor break immune, which is good if you're fighting maybe like a Vision Arcus, so you don't have to deal with that armor break. Or also just maybe encroaching stun, stuff like that, so you won't get stunned. And then you can also inflict tons of poisons, which do so much damage. So each of the heavy will inflict a poison. Mediums have the second medium has a 75% chance to inflict a poison. So if you just end with a medium and just spam heavies, you can be inflicting so many poisons. And then the special 2 will reapply all personal poisons, and it's unblockable and deals a bunch of energy damage, which is increased by 20% for each buff and poison that the opponent has gained the entire fight. So that's a maximum of 500%, but that's a ton of energy damage. So the special 2 does tons of damage if you have a good amount of poisons on the opponent. And also, he's got this part of his awakened ability is while poisoned, you take 15 to 30% less damage from all sources, and also you'll get a bit extra attack whenever the opponent is poisoned. But this is another thing that makes him even more suicide friendly, because you'll take 30% less damage from recoil while you've got that poison on you, which is just absolutely amazing. So this guy's great with the suicides because he's got all that healing. He's 100% less damage taken from poison, so you can just heal off of that. And this guy, he's just so sustainable. He's got so much damage and also a bunch more utility, and they just did a great job with buffing Diablo. Okay, so now I'm going to be going over the champions that I feel like I should change around in this tier list. So first of all, I will be taking Nightcrawler, moving up from bad to average. So I actually really like Nightcrawler. He's got some nice damage, especially if you got that crit with the extra burst damage. He's got some nice utility where especially you can't be hit when you're dashing back. So if he's not awakened, that means you won't be gaining any buffs if you turn off Dexterity, which is great for fights like that Mr. Sinister or Mojo or whatever. So I feel like he's got some nice utility. He's also got some nice damage. I've been playing around with him a bit. He's fun. So I feel like he deserves at least the average category. I feel like he's just not like a bad champion. Then next up, we'll be taking 2 champions from all the way up to good. So we'll take X23 and Rogue up to good. So first off, X23, I feel like she's a very beginner friendly champion. She's got some healing, which is nice. She's got a pretty basic, nothing too crazy with her abilities, just puts out some nice damage, and I feel like she's a good champion. And then with Rogue, I've seen so much stuff where Rogue does crazy things in like the Abyss, and everyone's using her for that Karina's challenge with the mutant. So Rogue is such a great champion because she's got that life steal. You can gain their buffs, and then she just got power steal also, which is amazing. And she can just do so much stuff where you can take their buffs, and she's got a lot of great utility. And then that damage can also go up if you have, like, if you steal maybe some Furies, you can get some great damage. So her, how good she is depends on how good the opponent is and how good their buffs are. But I feel like she's at least a good champion. Then next up, we will be taking Immortal Hulk up from average to God. So Immortal Hulk, I've seen so much gameplay recently with him, and I sort of underestimated him at first just because of how you have to be pretty low on health and you're doing that damage to yourself. But if you're good playing with this guy, he's insane. The mediums just do so much extra damage, and then you can just that immortality is really cool, where you can't die while it's active, sort of like the Hercules, his ability. But it's just so, I feel like Immortal Hulk, especially one guy, he soloed 2 fights in the Abyss with this guy, and Immortal Hulk, he's just a really good champion. I feel like he deserves that God tier ranking. So next up, we'll take Guillotine also up to God, and this is because of the new synergy she has with Purgatory, where her bleeds have a chance to be critical bleeds, which can do so much damage, similar to what they did with Wolverine with the Horseman ability. So she can do a ton of damage. So I feel like all that damage deserves the God tier ranking. Next, I'll be taking Red Goblin, who is currently at the good category. I'm also going to take him up to God, especially what a lot of the stuff I've seen with mainly what MSD's been doing with this guy. And you can get some buffs, you can inflict so many incinerates on the opponent. They're just doing so much damage, and it's just absolutely insane. Especially against this Darkhawk, Red Goblin's just absolutely nuts for it. Anywhere you get extra buffs, he can just do so much damage off the incinerates because you're inflicting so many more incinerates. And he's also got some nice power control. He's got some great utility in him. And Red Goblin, I feel like he's deserving of this God tier ranking. Then finally, I'm going to be moving a few champions up to Beyond God. So first up, Red Hulk up to Beyond God. He's a really good champion. I feel like he's pretty underrated. He's got that cool mechanic where not only is he immune to incinerates, but he actually absorbs them, and it gives him even more damage. And so anywhere where you're getting incinerates, and there's so many nodes that are super annoying for most champions, but he actually benefits from, where you're getting an incinerate on you. So Red Hulk, he's just so good for stuff like that. He's just a great champion. Then next, I'll be taking Angela and moving her down from overpowered to Beyond God. Because I feel like she got that nice utility off her awakened ability if you've got her at a high enough sig where you can be immune to all debuffs, which is really good. And then also she got some nice damage, but I feel like what she's doing is just not at the same level as, like, all the other people in this category. If you look at Stealth Spidey, Nick Fury, Red Magneto, Cosmic Ghost Rider, just like looking at all these guys, I feel like Angela just isn't on that next level, so that's why she's going in the Beyond God category. Then finally, I'll be taking SpiderGwen and moving her up from God to Beyond God, because she's got that slow off the heavy, she's got the Enervate, which is so cool, she's so, anywhere where there's unblockable specials, she's just absolutely insane for, because you can just chain heavies in the corner, and then they throw their special and you evade it, and then you can just get them back in the corner, and then just spam heavies, and even when they get over a bar of power, you just keep spamming heavies, as long as they're not at a special 3. And so SpiderGwen, she's cheesy for anything where there's an unblockable specials, and then also, she's so good against champions who either will evade or get unstoppable. She can slow them, which is just another great mechanic similar to She-Hulk's. And then she also has some nice damage with her different abilities. And I feel like SpiderGwen, she deserves that Beyond God tier ranking. But so this is my entire list. And look at it, we got the cheat codes, Ghost and Quake. We got overpowered champions, Beyond God champions, the God tiers, good tier, average, bad, terrible, and the memes. And then, so I will also be downloading this and posting the link to this, just an image of this, in both the pinned comment and in the description. So be sure to look out for that. And then also tell me down in the comment section below who you think should move up, who you think should move down, what you think I've got wrong in this tier list. Because there's no way I'm completely right with all this stuff. There's definitely some stuff I've got wrong. Some people I've misplaced. So please be sure to tell me who you think is better or worse, and I'll consider changing that in my next tier list. But thank you guys so much for watching this video, and if you did enjoy it, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss any content that we upload. But until next time, peace!